Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. About half the parents, when I get to that part of it, say, okay, you said the sermon, sit down, that's all we need to hear. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou may live long on the earth. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in singleness of your heart as unto Christ, not with eye service, as men pleasers, but as the servant of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will, doing service as to the Lord, and not to men, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall be received of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. And ye masters, do the same things unto them, forbearing, threatening, knowing that your master also is in heaven, neither is there respecter of person with him. As I was studying this section that was assigned, it became obvious to me that the section didn't necessarily was talking to children and slaves, or in our society we would say employers and employees. It was talking to us, because every one of you has a parent. Every one of you is a child of somebody. And hopefully that will become clear as we get into it a little bit further. But I found that the key to my section was in the previous section. So let's turn back a few verses and read Ephesians 5, 1 and 2. Be ye therefore followers of God, as dear what? Be ye therefore. We are children. So this, not only is Paul talking to the children, relationship to the parents, parents' relationship to the children, he's talking about your relationship as a child of God. And walk in love. There is one of the keys for this lesson. If we don't understand that, most of us will fail. As Christ also has loved us and has given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor. Now, verse 21 is where I felt the biggest key to my section. Submitting yourself one to another in the fear of God. Submitting. That's not easy to do. But if we understand how Christ submitted, then we should understand how we are to submit, because Christ is at the core or the foundation. My wife and I are starting to get into real estate investment. We went and looked at a house. It was $60,000. 3-bedroom, double-car garage. And we walked up to this house, and we could see that there was troubles. The wall shifted by a couple inches away from the ceiling. The ceiling in the hallway was at an angle. As you walked on the carpet, you tripped sometimes because there could be as much as 2 inches delta in the height of the floor. I don't know how much carpet you can put down. You're not going to cover that up. Doors were not quite right. And a crack down the garage floor was 2 inches wide. It went under the wall, and I could see the sunlight on the other side. I looked at the ceiling in the garage. It was 3 inches below the wall. It's coming down. What's wrong with the house? The foundation. If we don't understand the objective facts of the gospel, I don't care how hard we try at the subjective phase of our lives, it's not going to be right. So this talk tonight is assuming we understand the objective facts. And what we're going to study tonight will be the result of understanding the objective. Fear of the Lord. Verse 21 said, submitting yourself one to another in the fear of God. What is the fear of God? I know when I was a deputy sheriff in California on weekends, I walk into a house, there was fear, but did they look at me and say, you're here? I only had that happen once, and my heart cried for what I had to hear. You're here. Take my daughter. I don't want her anymore. But that's not what the fear of the Lord means. So I did a word search. What does the fear of the Lord mean? Is it the key to understanding how we are to submit? Clean, enduring forever. The beginning of wisdom. Does that sound like something to be scared of? The beginning of knowledge is to hate evil. Pride and arrogancy and the evil way and the froward mouth do I hate. Why would he say that? Why does God hate sin? Does he hate sin?
Amen.
Should we?
Amen.
Why? We should hate sin, not for what the punishment of sin is, but what it did to Christ. That's why we should hate sin, because Christ has already taken care of the sin problem. We should hate what it did to him, and that's why we should be repulsed by it. The fear of the Lord is strong confidence. Is that something you're scared of? Do you run where you have confidence or security? Instructions of wisdom. His treasure. But as I was looking at Ephesians 6, 1 through 9, I realized that there was a pattern, and the pattern started in the last section. Really, I believe they should be all one unit. But notice the pattern. After we're supposed to submit to each other, who does Paul go after first? The husband and the wife. Now, just don't say he goes after the wife, because if you look at it, there's only one verse for the wife, and there's 3 verses for the wife, and there's 8 or 9 for the husband. So be careful when, he went after the wives first. No. He went after, because if your relationship between the husband's not right, how are the kids going to learn something you don't have? How can you share with them something you don't have? Then after he deals with that, now we're going to go into our section, the relationship between children and parents to the child. Then in slaves to masters, masters to slaves. In our society, we would say that employee to employer and employer to employees. Ephesians, in my section, can be divided up into 2 parts, which you probably already understand. Between the parent and the child, employee-employer. When you read, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and the mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may go well with thee, that thou mayst live long on the earth. On face value, I had troubles with this. If you do this, this will happen. The if-then. Does that now sound like an old covenant to you? Well, let's go back to Exodus 20, verse 12, and read the commandment that Paul is quoting. But before we do that, let's never read the 10 Commandments without the first part of the 10 Commandments being read. That's in verse 2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Does God redeem first, then give you the law? Or did he give them the law, then redeemed them when they had their act together. Which came order? The sequence is vital. Which was it? Redemption. Then he took them out. He came to where they were. He brought them out. And then he gave them law, hoping that as a result of understanding their condition and where he was taking them, they would respond with a heartfelt response. Relationships are the result of whatever. My wife, when I was courting her, did she love me first, or was her love in response to me loving her? What does the Bible say? We love him because he what? Loved us first. Our relationship with God, if it's a new covenant relationship, will be the result of, not the means. And so, therefore, if we look at the 10 commandments as 10 promises, the first 4 deal with our relationship to God. They're really 10 promises. We will honor our God. We will worship him the Sabbath for what it represents. It means we are saved by what he has done, and we are resting in his works, his righteousness. The last 6 deal with our relationship to others. If the first 4 aren't there, do you think the last 6 will be there? No. Children, obey. Have we ever abused that word? Why? Because I said so. That has never convinced my daughter yet. Though I keep trying it. And that's the definition of stupidity, where you keep trying the same thing over and over and over again and getting the same results expecting something different. Right? Obey is to what? Listen intently. In relationships, my wife says this to me. You're not listening to me. I hear her, I understand her, but I have failed to make her feel that I have listened to her. I may not agree, but it's important that I make her feel like I have listened to her, that I understand. Her heart needs to feel that I understand. And after 11 years, 15 days, 42 hours, and 17 minutes, I still haven't got it. But the thing that I noticed when I was studying this, if children are going to obey their parents, they're going to have to see the father giving the wife kindly attentions. And they're going to have to see the mother respect the father and reverence the father. If they don't see that, how are they going to learn to obey? Well, how? How are they going to learn something? How are you going to teach them something that you don't possess if you're not obeying and being reverent to God? But as I was going through the spirit of prophecy, another thing came to my attention. Duty to provide for our parents does not stop when you get to my age. I'm the eldest son of my family. Biblically, I have the responsibility to take care of my parents when they shall need it. And with the attitude of my mother, it will be many years before she will submit to let me take care of her. But it is my responsibility to make sure they're taken care of. Not just a home, a house, a place. We have a person that does an hospice program there in Joshua, Texas. And he said one lady visited with him. She goes, I'm not dying of old age. I'm not dying of of a disease. I'm dying of loneliness. Her boys lived just a few miles from the nursing home and never came to visit her. Our responsibility to our parents. So if we want our children to respect us, to obey us, we have to be reflecting that in our example. Like it said, witness, witness, witness. And if all fails, use words. Examples of obedience. How young was Isaac when Abraham laid him on the altar? How old was Abraham when he had Isaac? He was 100 years old, right? I think about, shall we guess, 117, 118 years old, Abraham? Isaac, 17? Who was stronger physically? Isaac. Who was quicker? Who was faster? When we read in Genesis 22, Isaac was bound, and Abraham raised the knife to kill him. There is an example of obedience. But let's go now to Luke 2, verses 49 and 51, and we see another example of obedience. And if we don't see this, if our children do not see this obedience in us, how are they to learn obedience to the fifth commandment? Have you ever seen your children learn something on their own that you do not exemplify? If I pick up an ice cream cone, my daughter learns that habit immediately. But if I help my wife in the kitchen, it takes many times for my daughter to learn that one. Maybe it's the attitude I'm showing. I'm going to help with the dishes and I'm going to love this. It's what motivates us that makes the difference. Verse 49. And he said unto them, How is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business? And they understood not the saying which he spake unto them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was what? Subject unto them. But his mother kept all these sayings in her heart. He thought it's his time to be about his heavenly Father's business. But they were his earthly parents, and he was subject even to them. Matthew 26. Let's turn there. And we all are familiar with this one. Matthew 26, 39. I used to put all my text in my PowerPoint presentations, but I've stopped that because I want you to get used to seeing the word in your own Bible, so that when you go and share somebody with something, you remember, it was on this side of the page about here, and you'll find it. 2, it also shows that it is not my job to convict you of the truth. It's the Holy Spirit's job to convict you. And he's going to convict you where? Here. Matthew 26, verses 39. And he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as what? Not as I will, but as thou wilt. And he cometh unto his disciples, and findeth them asleep, and said unto Peter, What? Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away again the second time and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup may not pass from me except I drink it, what? Thy will be done. This is the obedience that we are seeking for. If we have this obedience, let's take our corporate idea. If our children don't see us corporately obeying the Father, why are we surprised when they don't obey us? 2 Corinthians 12:7. Due to time, we know the story. Paul had some type of thorn in the flesh. We don't know what it was. How many times did he pray to have it taken away? 3 times. What was God's answer? Well, let's turn there. 2 Corinthians 12. I had it. Second Corinthians 12, 7 through 10. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelation, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecution, in distress, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Question you have to ask yourself again. Do the children, my children, your children, see in me what I want in them? Here's another question to ask. How many of you have daughters? How would you like somebody to marry your daughter and treat them the way you're treating your wife? If your answer is not, sure, no problem. You got a problem. Or how would you like your daughter to treat her husband the way, or wives, how would you like your daughter to treat her husband the way you're treating your husband? You ever thought about that? I think this is why Paul tackled the husband and wife before he got to the children. It stems from there. In the Lord, children, obey your parents in the Lord. When I was younger, I projected what I saw in my parents as my view of God. And you know what my view of God was? He must spank awfully hard. Because I thought my parents couldn't finish a sentence. What the? Get it. Get over here. I remember coming home from orchestra practice. I got out of the car, I went to the neighbor's house, I fed their horses, I walked back to our house, I walked into the house, and my mom was sitting there with the plastic bat, slapping one hand with the plastic bat and said, "Come here." Now, my mind raced. I got my homework done. What did I do? She said, "Nothing." Now, that doesn't help my mind. I'm getting a spanking for nothing. Do you think I protested? What did I do? What happened? Your bed's broke. I didn't do that. She goes, "I know." Why am I getting a spanking? Because you showed your brothers how to jump from the top bunk to the bottom bunk, and your bed is broke. You taught them, "Come here. This is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you." And I did not understand that statement till in the last 10 years. And it's true. It does hurt the parents more than it hurts the kids. In the Lord, does it mean that? That could be one meaning. But I believe what Paul is really saying, obey your parents, and this refers to us too, just like you would obey if your parents were the Lord. How would you obey Jesus Christ? But as I started studying this also, I noticed that the words were different a little bit. In Deuteronomy 5:16, which is another quote of this, let's turn there, Deuteronomy 5:16. Honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God has commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Why are the words different? Here it says that you may live long on the earth, but in Deuteronomy it says, in the land that I'm going to give you. Well, in Deuteronomy, who is the writer talking to? It's Moses talking to who? The Israelites. Where are they going? Canaan. In Ephesians, Paul is talking to who? Gentiles. So he brought the intent of the commandment. And what he's implying is that God has rules for our benefit. I give my daughter assignments like wash the dishes for 2 reasons. She needs to know how to do this. She's going to be on her own someday. Number 2, I don't want to do them. That's my prerogative, right? But the main reason is, where did I learn them? My mother says, go do dishes. It's your week. Boy, I hate big families at that time. There's 6 of us kids, 2 parents, and why did they have to make haystacks that day? There's a bowl for the cheese, bowls for the lettuce, bowl for this, bowl for that, bowl, plus all the other dishes, plus the stuff they cooked in. And everybody goes out and plays. And I'm washing dishes. But why was I given that assignment? Because it was for my best. Because now I can wash dishes for my wife. But before I got married, what was I? Single? Yeah. I had my own apartment. You know, I had the philosophy, if you couldn't nuke it, you didn't eat it. You know, pipe it in the microwave, pop. That's supper. But sometime I had to cook. If I love hot cereal, who's going to clean that dish if I don't? Where am I going to get the training? I worked in a nursing home in college. They admired the way I could make beds. Where did I learn to make the bed? At the hand of my mother. Do I make my bed now? Very rarely. I believe in airing out the bed. My mother taught me to pick up my clothes. My wife wished I had learned that lesson. As I go to bed, I take the clothes off. She doesn't like them on the floor, but I use my logic. They're in the perfect order. When I get up in the morning, I can put them right back on. But it never goes. Fathers represented by parents. The father is the representative of the family. So this really says fathers or parents. Don't drive your children away. Don't give them do's and don'ts and don'ts and do's because I said so. Nurture. Discipline them. My daughter is into horses. We're into horses. When you go to a horse show, which horse wins? A well-trained horse or a wild horse left to its own devising? Which one? When you see a well-trained horse, it's also, you say it's well, what? Disciplined. Discipline does not necessarily mean a negative thing. But when I tell my daughter I'm going to discipline her, what's the first thing that comes to her mind? What did I do? Discipline should mean well-trained. Now, Paul lived in a society. Now we're going to switch to the slave master part of the scripture. He's not endorsing slavery here. He's dealing with what's in his culture at that time and how to live with it. Did Christ come to solve our political and social problems or civil problems? Did he do that? No. Did Paul try to solve the civil and political problems of his time? Why not? If you have a messed up world, it means you have a messed up countries. If you have a messed up world, it means you have a messed up country, you have a messed up states. If you have a messed up world, you have a messed up country, you have a messed up state, you have messed up communities or counties. If you have a messed up world, you have messed up counties, you have a messed up state, you have messed up counties, you have messed up cities. If you have messed up world, you have messed up countries, you have messed up state, you have messed up counties, you have messed up cities, you're therefore going to have messed up communities. You getting the drift? But we don't stop there. If the world is messed up, your countries are messed up, the state is messed up, the counties are messed up, the cities are messed up, the communities are messed up, the homes are messed up. Well, let's go one further. If the world is messed up, the countries are messed up, the state is messed up, the counties are messed up, the cities are messed up, the communities are messed up, the homes are messed up. That means people are messed up. Well, if the world is messed up and the countries are messed, countries are messed up, the state is messed up, the counties are messed up, the cities are messed up, the communities are messed up, the homes are messed up, the people are messed up, what does that mean? You got messed up children. Let's go one further. Let's take it to its ultimate conclusion. One more time. If the world is messed up, the countries are messed up, that means we got states that are messed up, which means we have counties that are messed up. That means we have cities that are messed up. We have communities that are messed up. We have homes that are messed up. We have people who are messed up because we have children who are messed up because we have what? You and I messed up. Put God in there. Now you have godly parents. Well, if you have godly parents, then you will have what? Godly children. Well, if you have godly parents, godly children, you then have what? Godly homes. Well, if you have godly parents, godly children, godly people, godly homes, you have what? Godly communities. You see where I'm going with this? Well, if you have godly parents, godly children, godly people, godly homes, godly communities, and you go all the way up until you have a godly world, you don't change the environment to affect the people. You go and change the man, and he will change the environment. Communism tried it and failed. According to the flesh, that's referring to your earthly masters. Fear and trembling. Slaves, obey your masters. Let me get the words correct. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling. What was the method of dealing with runaway slaves? Crucifixion. Do you think they had any fear and trembling? What's the two main motivations for today's world? Want a reward and fear. I can take our horses to the trough. I can force their nose into the water with some other equipment. They're bigger than I am. They outweigh me. They're stronger. But can I make that horse drink? So you've heard that phrase. You can take a horse to the trough, but you can't make it drink. I can force you to do anything I want. But what God wants us to go after is the heart of man. You get the heart of somebody, the body comes along. Paul understood the slave society. We even have a book in the Bible dealing with it. Which book is that? Philemon. What did Paul do when that slave ran away? Did he say, stay here and help me? I'm really not for slavery. He did what? He sent him back with a letter of recommendation. Singleness of your heart. Paul knew he was right where he should be. When bad things happen to you, and they will, it's not what happens to you that matters or that you can control. It's how you react that matters. Even though Paul, the letter of Ephesians is written, it's a prison letter. Did Paul ever call himself a prisoner of Rome? In Ephesians 4:1, he was a prisoner of God. Romans 1:1, he was a servant or a slave of God. Philippians 1:1, servant of God. Titus 1:1, a servant of God. Philemon 1, a prisoner of God. And I think our attitude makes a tremendous difference in this. Let's turn to Philippians 4:11. And this should be our attitude wherever we are. If we're sent to Africa to work as a missionary. Unfortunately, I've been there. There's no currant bushes. You can't take your hairdryer with you. But are you willing to go? 4:11. Not that I speak of respect of want, for I have learned that whatsoever state I am, therefore to be what? Paul is dealing with those. How many of you have a job you absolutely love and don't want to change? How many of you have jobs that you don't like? How many are not willing to admit it? But regardless of wherever we are, we can be content with it. Can a slave witness to the master? Okay. And I think this is what Paul is trying to say. Not with eye service or men pleasers. When I was taking some of the management courses, there was a story called the rule of the hog. And I asked, what is the rule of the hog? How is it? I'm an Adventist. I'm not going to be able to apply that anywhere. But it was in the sawmill. And there was a boss who was very demanding, very unfair. And when a worker got hurt, he said, get him out of here. Swing by the office, pick up your last check, you're out of here. And as one of the attendants was taking care of the injured man, he turned to the other workers, and they were just standing there looking at him. He goes, isn't this wrong? They said, yeah, it is. What are you going to do about it? We have the hog. The hog. And he goes, what do you mean, the hog? Well, you see, up this conveyor belt, all these wood products come, and we have logs. We take the good logs out, and we chop them up into boards. The rest of the scrap wood goes up into the hog. And it's our job to make sure that somebody's there at the last to make sure no good pieces go by, because that costs the company money. And when something like this happens, we let whole logs go by. We get even. We have the hog. So don't serve, look good to the employee or the employers. Don't be good to, at my work, there's 14,000 of us in one location, and there's people out there to get ahead at whatever cost. You hear them, blah, 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 blah. Boss walks around, oh, you're the best boss. He walks away, ooh, gag, gag. And you look at him and you go, what are they doing? Not with eye service or men pleasers. What's a good example of how a good slave should be, or employee? Joseph, he was in Potiphar. The Lord blessed him. Anybody with a Volvo with their lights on? They're getting dimmer. But did Joseph complain? Did he serve honestly? Potiphar left everything into Joseph's hands and did not know anything except for the food he ate on the table. Why? Because Joseph did not serve with eye service as men pleasers. Even when he was falsely accused, did he change his behavior? No. And the Lord was with him, and the Lord blessed him. Ephesians 6, 7, and 8. For those who are employees and not employers, treat your boss as if he was Christ. Serve him as if he was Christ. How you serve him is different how you would serve Christ, then you need to look at it again. Because when Christ talks to those on his right hand in Matthew 25, what did he say? You served me, you visited me in prison, you fed me, and what were the people's response? When did we do that? Do you think they served people as if it was Christ? Yes. Acts 9, 3 through 6. Paul was struck by a bright light. What did God say to Paul? Saul. Did you say Saul? It says, why are you what? When you do it to somebody else, you're doing it to God. In Matthew 5, 44 and 45, rain falls on the just and the unjust. In Oregon, we say mostly the just, because the unjust steal the just umbrellas. But how many of you went outside today and enjoyed the sunshine? Did you see shadows over those who are lost? No? God he doesn't respect rank or position. And that's what we read in verse 9. God is not a respecter of person. He treats everyone equal. And we should too. Sometimes it's hard. My boss is this tall. He has a voice of Yosemite Sam. He has a temper of Yosemite Sam. When he's not around, he is called Yosemite Sam. But I can say one thing. He does look up to me. Most people in Lockheed look up to me. But how should I treat him? As if he was Christ. Now, as Barbara and I set up our business, we're going to have people working with and for us. How should we treat them? How am I going to witness to them if I don't treat them as if they were Christ himself? Masters, treat your slaves as if you were treating Jesus Christ. And masters, remember, as you treat them, you have a master. What goes around comes around. And where I work, that's very true. If you double-cross somebody, you will be taken care of. I had a falling out with my boss at Northrop Grumman. I went to work for Lockheed Martin. Then I was asked to go work on the Joint Strike Fighter, of which Northrop Grumman is a partner. Guess who sits 4 aisles from me? My old boss. You walk by, hi Jim. Wish I hadn't said that. Be careful what we say. Be careful how we treat people. It will come back to bite us. Summary, let's wrap this up. Remember, Ephesians 5:21 is the key. The fear of God, how we submit. But the basis of every relationship we have should be love, God's agape love. In our relationship with God, it is a response to His love. Husbands, you have a dual role. Not only are you to love your wife like Christ loves the church, you are to respond to God like the wife is to respond to you. Children, parents, we are to love our children, for we are a child of God. Employees, employers, at the base of every relationship has got to be agape. Our relationship to others must be a reflection or a motivation of a new covenant relationship. A heartfelt response from what Christ has done by realizing our true condition. All other relationships are what? They're old covenants because they're either out of want of reward or fear of punishment. But we should be reflecting our relationship to God to others. Because if you don't have it, you can't witness it.